You lived an entire life before the age of 3. You opened your eyes for the first time, heard your mother's voice, took your first steps, and said your first word. Yet today, you can't remember any of it, not even a single moment. Most people assume the reason is simple. Your brain was too underdeveloped to store memories. But the truth is much stranger. Your baby brain wasn't failing to record your life, it was actually recording far more than you realize. The problem is that those memories didn't survive. In the 1980s, psychologist Carolyn Rovi Collier proved that even babies can form memories. In one famous experiment, she tied a ribbon from a baby's ankle to a mobile hanging above the crib. The babies quickly learned that kicking their legs made the mobile move. Days later, when they returned, many of them immediately started kicking again. They remembered the connection. So infants can learn, they can store information, but somehow, almost all of those early memories disappear with time. One reason is that the brain's memory system is still under construction. A small structure called the hippocampus is responsible for turning experiences into lasting memories. In adults, it works together with other brain regions to organize and store events we can later replay in our minds. But during infancy, those connections are incomplete. The system simply isn't stable enough to preserve memories for decades. However, that's only part of the story. In 2014, neuroscientists Paul Franklin and Sheena Jocelyn proposed an even more surprising explanation. During the first years of life, the brain creates an enormous number of new neurons, a process called neurogenesis. This rapid growth is essential because it helps build the brain's future circuits. But there may be a hidden cost. Every time new neurons are added, old neural connections are disrupted. In other words, the very process that helps a child's brain grow may also erase the memories already stored inside it. To test this idea, researchers experimented on mice. When they increased neuron growth in adult mice, the mice began forgetting previously learned information. When they reduced neuron growth in infant mice, those young mice held onto memories for much longer than normal. The conclusion was remarkable. Babies don't forget because their brains are weak, they forget because their brains are growing too fast. Your earliest memories may have existed once, but the brain rebuilt itself so aggressively that the original pathways disappeared. There's another fascinating layer to this mystery: the sense of self. Psychologists Mark Howe and Mary Courage argued that autobiographical memory, memories where you see yourself as the main character, can't fully exist until a child develops self-awareness. Before around 18 to 24 months, babies don't truly recognize themselves as separate individuals. A famous experiment demonstrates this clearly. Researchers place a small mark on a child's nose and sit them in front of a mirror. Younger babies usually think the reflection is another child. Older toddlers, however, touch their own nose, realizing the reflection is actually them. This moment of self-recognition closely matches the age when our first lasting memories usually appear. In a way, before that stage, there was no stable you to connect experiences into a personal story. Language also plays a major role. Before children can speak, their experiences exist mostly as raw sensations, sounds, emotions, colors, and touch. But without words, those experiences have no structure. Language acts like a framework that organizes memories into narratives the brain can store and revisit later. Studies even show that culture affects how far back people can remember. In cultures where parents often tell stories and discuss past experiences with children, people tend to remember earlier parts of childhood. In cultures where personal storytelling is less emphasized, earliest memories usually appear later. So the reason you can't remember being a baby isn't because nothing was happening. It's because everything was happening at once. Your brain was growing, rewiring itself, developing self-awareness, and learning language all at the same time. Your earliest years weren't empty. They were simply sacrificed for something bigger, the creation of the person you would eventually become. Thank you for being with me and have a nice day.